dozen YouTube viewers. But we are
Yeah.
holding it down over here. I had some good snow. Apparently, it was the snowiest February in Wisconsin history, so that was nice.
Nice.
But other than that, I'm doing great. I had a good family birthday party this morning. I somehow avoided most of the sweets and carbs and all that stuff that you can just eat incessantly without, really realizing it. So stuck to a lot of meats and egg bakes, and I'm training well. I'm feeling good. I'm ready for this episode.
Good for you, man. I'm glad. Yeah, we're in the middle of some snow. I think it's supposed to slow down a little bit, but they're calling for 2 to 6 tonight. So possibly another snow day Monday morning, which I would not complain about.
Ooh, what a life. You get a snow day at 2 to 6. That's the dream.
It shuts it down, man. Shuts everything down. So, but I do think, spring is going to be here before we know it because they're already starting baseball tryouts. A couple of my wrestlers are getting ready for that. Wrestling season has come to an end. So, those are always the tall tale signs that spring's almost here. The weather's going to break. The days are going to get longer. And we all survived another winter.
Well, yeah, and I'm pretty sure that damn groundhog said so.
I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure he promised me a short winter, and I don't know what my legal course or my legal recourse is if it exceeds his expectations. But I think I can go to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. No, why would I ever want to go there? Okay, just kidding. I'll stop myself before I say something dumb. I got no reason to go see a groundhog.
Yeah, I don't think many people do have a reason to go there. But do you know off the top of your head what the snowfall was for your area in the month of February?
I think we had like 60-ish inches.
Wow. And that's just no big deal, huh?
I mean, had a few days shut down school, but all in all, I was talking about this with some coworkers. You become numb to it. After the first one or two big snowfalls, it's that whole like same shit, different day mentality where you just shrug and it's like, all right, get the snowblower out again and blow away our 6 to 8 inches of snow and get ready for the next round.
Gotcha. Well, good deal, man. It must be nice. And at this point in the year, like everybody's kind of adjusted to it. It's always the first two snowfalls that get kind of crazy here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm over. I'm tired of feeling this way. Like everybody has been sick. This has been one of the worst years for it that I can remember. And I don't know if it's because I've been around more kids this year. So I'm sure that has something to do with it.
Right.
But like on the wrestling team, I mean, we had kids with walking pneumonia, with bronchitis. We had a kid that was out for almost a month. Like I just don't remember it being like that. So
wrestling is a little bit easier to transfer some germs than other sports or non-sport activities. Not exactly like you guys are sanitizing every 3 seconds there.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, but we've survived. It's time for the off season, and like you said, we got about 2 weeks, and it'll be football season here. So, got to gear up for that. But talk to me a little bit before we wrap this up about this week's prep. Getting ready, the training. I saw you were hitting the rowing machine and some other various cardio pieces of equipment, and doing the oh my gosh. I'll have to edit that out. The Instagram post saying you were doing cardiovascular work. But talk to me a little bit about this week's prep.
Oh, cardio it's still dumb. It's if you're trying to lose weight on cardio, it is a waste of time. I was on that row machine for 15 minutes and I'm sure it wasn't calibrated right for my body weight, but it was like 160 calories after 15 minutes of rowing, doing a 3K on there. And admittedly, I'm not the fastest rower. I wasn't going as hard as other people do, blah, blah, blah. But still, you are wasting so much time and putting in seemingly a ton of effort as far as RPE goes to burn like 0 calories.
Yeah.
But it, got the lungs functioning, got my heart beating a little harder, got the whole cardiovascular system awake and aware. Like, hey, we do still exist. We can function. What do you know?
Yeah. Now, when you put the rowing machine in comparison with the other pieces of cardio equipment at the gym, where does it rank for you? Like if we're going standard treadmill, which I know we're going to put that, recumbent bike, stepper, elliptical, and rower, based solely on enjoyment. And I know it's going to be low rating for you, but where does the rower stack up for you?
Oh no, for enjoyment, I'd put that in the top 2.
Yeah, I agree.
I love the recumbent bike just because I can be like lazy and fat and sit there, and they got TVs and I can hang out, look at my phone and pretend to be working, but not actually working like most people do. Right. Not to point fingers because I do that too. But the row machine, it's great because you're actually working the entire time. Like your legs are working, your arms are working, your back is working, lower back is working. You have to work your lungs, all that good stuff. Where if I'm going to hate cardio regardless, I would rather hate it with some result.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I put the rowing machine up there pretty high, probably my number 1. Right there, I mean, it's a close race between that and the recumbent bike because I mean, you can put a book up there on the little shelf that they have for you, or a tablet, or whatever it may be, and be entertained a little bit. But yeah, I would agree. The rower is kind of fun. That's not a great word for it, but it's tolerable, right?
Right, and it's the best investment. As far as time goes, it's going to be your best investment. And when we think about cardiovascular demand, it's trying to get oxygen to your muscles. What is using the most muscles the most, that is demanding the most oxygen? It's going to be something that uses your arms and your legs, that they're both exerting energy. That's going to be the row machine. To a certain extent, the elliptical could replicate that if you get the swinging arms, but that's mostly passive on your arms. So if you're doing something with high effort, at least get something out of it, do the row machine.
Yeah. And the assault bike that's been made famous by CrossFit would kind of go up there too, maybe a little bit more comparable to the rowing machine with the arm action and stuff like that. But yeah, go do some rows tomorrow. You guys will enjoy it. Maybe you won't enjoy it, but it'll be beneficial. So
exactly.
All right, buddy. Anything else we need to get to? We got a lot to talk about in a short amount of time today. So
yeah, we'll talk about the Arnold next week.
Yes, and some insane lifts and stuff like that. We can full recap next week. Yeah, sounds good. So, all right, guys. With that being said, we are doing part 2 of fat shaming today. And
fat acceptance. We're not shaming. Maybe.
Should I edit that?
No, we'll see how the science works out.
We'll keep it there because
you're showing your hand at him.
No, I'm not thinking great. I'm on a lot of cough medicine right now and Mucinex and other things, so the wheels aren't spinning exactly how they should be. And let's be real honest, when I'm completely sober, they're not spinning that great either. So it's going to be a wild ride today, but yeah, we're going to talk about that when we come back. So guys, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Yeah, we got to keep all that in. It's raw. Like, oh yeah, we're on the struggle bus. It's all good.
Yeah, big time. All right, I'm going to do my best for you, but no promises.
Yeah, if you fall asleep, it's fine. I'm getting good at this.
You are. All right, here we go. All right, guys, we are back. And last week we got into the topic of fat acceptance. And what was really interesting for me, and, Ben, we covered this, was when I came downstairs to have this conversation with you last week, I kind of had my mind made up. And I'm a little embarrassed about that because as of recently, and, as I get older, I've kind of prided myself on not coming into anything with a fixed belief, or not so much trying to be right in the argument, but find the truth. And admittedly, I came down here and I had my mind made up. Like, I don't have to accept you for being fat or being obese, overweight, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying not to show my cards too much, but I'm sure you were aware of, my preconceived notions there. And as we discussed the subject more and you laid things out there, my opinion kind of started to change. So I come down today, stoned on cough medicine, pretty tired, and open to accepting new ideas. So with all that being said, I'm just going to kind of turn this over to you. If you want to do a little recap or if you want to get right into it, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, and like we discussed last week, we'll do a little recap, but I think you and I have, at least we had or maybe still have, this notion of fat acceptance coming from where we have been, and maybe not conquering obesity or doing anything glorious like that, but yeah, we were significantly bigger than we were. We found a way to change it. We think that it might be that simple for everyone, and that's something that for us, like, shit, I did it. I'm not anything special. Why can't everyone else do it? So having that perception of the fat acceptance movement ingrained in your thought process, it might be informed by something, but it may not be correct or may not be completely informed. So it's difficult to be like, oh, you're wrong for that, because you do have justification for this thought process, but ultimately you're not taking in the whole story. And the whole story, from what we talked about last time we discussed this, or our first little venture into fat acceptance, was the history of obesity and the history of fat acceptance. And for essentially as long as we know, obesity has been a thing in human history. The oldest pieces of art on Earth show obese women, what we would consider obese women. They are these stone carvings from 12 to 15,000 years ago. They are small carvings, but there are dozens of them from all over the world. And it's going to be something that, yes, we do have these ancient representations of obesity coming from 15,000 years ago in the European continent to a couple thousand years ago between Greece and Italy, the Roman and Greek empires. There was art displaying obesity. We have representations of obesity from the South Pacific and the Pacific Islander cultures. We have representations of obesity in Central American cultures with, I believe they were Maya jade carvings. So it's something that has been around for all of human history and isn't necessarily a modern, I don't want to say a modern problem necessarily or a modern issue, but it's not something that is completely modern to have obese people in culture. And this is something that people figured out in the 60s. The late 60s was the official start of the fat acceptance movement in America. I don't know the man's name offhand, but the man that we were discussing created the National Association for the Advancement of Fat Acceptance, I believe is what it was, the NAAFA. If you're looking that up, you can chime in whenever you want.
I'm on it.
Yep.
Continue on.
But in, I believe it was 1967 or 1969.
1969, yep. Bill Fabry, New York City.
All right. So National Association for the Advancement of Fat Acceptance, is that it?
Interesting videos here that come up. I'm gonna be insensitive, so please continue.
There you go. So the movement originally started in the late 60s with more of an accessibility and an acceptance approach, but a more non-discrimination acceptance approach. rather than a wholehearted accept me for who I am, I'm beautiful, love my rolls and stretch marks and all that. So
Right.
it eventually evolved into modern fat acceptance, like we know. I don't want to say know and love, but we know it. And that's the original root. So originally it started almost like, I like to think of it as the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's people that have been discriminated against due to uh, maybe some body issues that are not standard. I don't want to parallel it with being paraplegic or quadriplegic or anything like that, because largely that's involuntary. And when we think of extreme obesity, it's going to be more voluntary. But what they were asking for, instead of, um, wholeheartedly embrace my body, embrace my decision to be this size, they just said, hey, we don't want discrimination in education. We don't want discrimination in the workplace, and we don't want discrimination in our medical field, which are three major areas where obese people do face discrimination, whether it's inherent discrimination, just within the decision-making process, or if it's purposeful bias against obese people. And in the medical community, there is a definite bias. In the education community, there are statistics that show obese students do not get the same attention. They don't get the same respect that average weight students get. And in employment, there is also the perception that obese people are not able to do the job as well as people who are in normal sized bodies. So
Right.
from there, I think we both agreed, probably a good thing.
Yes. And one thing that I wanted to jump in on about is you mentioned we didn't want to compare, and you opened my eyes to this last week. We didn't want to compare things like disabilities and paraplegia and things like that to obesity, because it is something that on that end, it's something that you're born with, you can't control. But then also, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead too much here, but I just wanted to bring it up. You made the argument last week that there is possibly a case to argue that genetics play a large factor into obesity. And then when we look that up, it's kind of a wide range there, but anywhere from like, what was it, like 5 to 80%?
It's like 5 to 85,
yeah. Yeah. But I think it's important to make note of that as well.
Exactly. And the current science of obesity, at least looking at the genetic side, looking at just the raw DNA data, there is a link between obesity and your genetics. As tenuous as some of these links may be, there are, I believe, around 10 to 12 areas of DNA that will modify your habits and just how your body functions to be more predisposed to obesity, like something that would affect leptin, which is going to inform you if you're full or not. So when you have low leptin, you will never really feel full. And if your genetics don't provide the ability to provide this hormone, you're constantly going to be eating and chasing that feeling of fullness, which never comes.
Yes.
So with this foundational understanding of obesity, we got to change our views a little bit. We both had a new understanding of what obesity is, what it historically has been, and why it's happening today, maybe more so than other points in history. It may have been always there genetically, but now we have the access to act on it. And it's something that is really not new as far as human population goes. So the, I guess, counter argument or the counterpoint to this would be the people that say, well, that's a load of bullshit. I lost weight. Everyone else should be able to lose weight. Why should I accept their decision to do this to themselves and put on weight? We have strong science to say, hey, entropy is real, energy in, energy out. We know how that whole cycle works. Do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And from here, we will start with maybe our research contrary to the fat acceptance movement. And it is something that is well backed by science. As we know, there are strong links between obesity and negative metabolic, negative just human functioning goes. And a few of these resources are pretty clear on what obesity does to the body. So from the Wiley Online Library, I pulled this article. It's published February 19th of 2007. So generally well regarding research, there's kind of a 10-year gap where I like to look. It's going to be more recent, more up-to-date research. But I think this kind of sits, and holds the test of time. So this is from Professor P. Kopelman, the University of East Anglia, which is in the UK. So it essentially just goes through the health risks associated with increasing BMI. And this does not distinguish between muscular BMI gains or fat-based BMI gains. But let's face it, the majority of people are not obese based off of muscle mass.
Right.
So just a rapid bullet point here. We have increased risk for metabolic syndrome. 30% of middle-aged people in developed countries have features of metabolic syndrome. Type 2 diabetes, 90% of type 2 diabetics have a BMI of greater than 23 kilograms per meter squared. So, not that high as far as body mass goes, but still in the obese category, or approaching the obese category. For hypertension, there is a 5 times risk in obese individuals. 66% of hypertension is linked to excess weight, and 85% of hypertension is associated with a BMI of 25 or greater, which is anything overweight. I believe the cutoff for overweight is 25 kilograms per meter squared. Let's see, coronary artery disease, 3.6 times risk with increased BMI. Dyslipidemia, 70% of obese women with hypertension have left ventricular hypertrophy. That means an enlarged heart. Obesity is a contributing factor to cardiac failure in about 10% or greater of patients. Overweight, obesity plus hypertension is associated with increased risk of ischemic strokes. Let's see. Respiratory effects. Here we go. Good stuff. Neck circumference of over 43 centimeters in men and over 40.5 centimeters in women is associated with sleep apnea, daytime, some science word, somnolescence, and development of pulmonary hypertension. We have 10% of all cancer-related deaths among non-smokers are related to obesity, and 30% of endometrial cancers are related to obesity. 6% of primary infertility in women is attributable to obesity. Fellas, impotency, and infertility are frequently associated with obesity in men. So, if you're not throwing it down like you used to, maybe look at the weight. Osteoarthritis. We have frequent association in the elderly with increasing body weight and risk of disability attributable to osteoarthritis equal to heart disease. and greater to any other medical disorder of the elderly. We have liver and gallbladder disease. Let's see, 40% of patients are obese, 20% have dyslipidemia, 3 times risk of gallbladder disease in women who have a BMI of 32 or greater. And let's see, there's a 7 times risk if BMI is greater than 45. So,
and just to backtrack a little bit, no, not great. Excuse me. But you started off by saying you're at a greater risk of metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome always kind of drove me nuts because it includes a whole host of problems. It's just about as long as the rest of the list that you read as well.
Right.
Not limited to increased blood sugar, which I think you did cover, but I also think blood pressure, cholesterol, just kind of your lab work type stuff, abnormalities on that, I think is included within the term metabolic syndrome. If I'm correct. You probably know a little bit more about
that. I got to dust off the old brain there, but I believe you are correct. It's all that umbrella stuff like, hey, your metabolic system is not functioning properly.
Yeah, and things are not great.
Right. And this is where we get into the weeds, especially with the health and fitness community versus the fat acceptance movement. There's a big movement within the fat acceptance movement that goes beyond we want equal treatment in education, we want equal treatment in employment, and we want equal treatment in medicine. There is the movement within fat acceptance that you can be healthy at every size. HAES, healthy at every size, where they say, hey, we are functional individuals. We can dance, we can swim, we can run, we can jump, we can do anything a normal weight person is doing. Hey, I have healthy blood pressure, so I'm healthy. And they refuse to take these numbers into account. You are healthy now, but you are also at a 90% increased risk for hypertension, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's a great point because right now, hey, your blood pressure is great. Cholesterol is okay. You're doing all these activities, but the heart still has to pump to those tissues. Like the knees still have to support that weight. And it goes back to what we've talked about so many times on here, that healthy is kind of I don't want to say a stupid word, but it's such an umbrella term and it's so subjective when you just, took 2 minutes and read off this very objective list saying, hey, this is what the science shows. You're not going to outrun this. This is a 90% likelihood that this is going to happen to you, And I'll go off on a little tangent here because I've been frustrated about this recently. But former co-host on the show and father-in-law had a heart attack last year. And they were very upset about the medical care they received, despite the fact that he survived. Let that sink in for a second. Of course, I guess I need to get into the backstory a little bit more to explain that, but I'm not going to. So, what had happened was, it's no surprise, I talked about it before on here that he kind of fell off the wagon and, was not going to the gym, wasn't eating correctly or,
Right.
So on and so forth. He gained a significant amount of weight. But they had decided that what had happened, what had caused the heart attack, was he fell out of a hammock the night before because he was drunk. So he fell out of the hammock, and that jarred something loose and caused the heart attack.
Okay.
Family decided this, not the doctor. Doctor said, significantly overweight, your diet's garbage, you drink too much alcohol, and you lead a very sedentary life. But that doctor was obviously an idiot because it was because he fell out of a hammock. So these are, and I'm sure I'm coming off kind of aggressive or hostile here, and I don't mean to, but that is an example that's close to me to how we excuse certain, it's not my weight, it's not this, it's not this.
Right.
It's this anomaly that only happened to me. And I'm the only other person that's ever suffered from this before. And, medical science is completely wrong. And we just seem to, across the board, make these excuses time and time again. I mean, I think it's very rare to, at least in my experience, I've known about 6 people that have had heart attacks. I don't think one of them has ever said, I probably should go to the gym more, or it's always some medication that they were on, or some weird, trip fell, whatever. Of course, we're kind of getting into more of a philosophical debate here on accountability and whose fault is it and issuing blame and stuff like that. But just something that got spurred in my mind when you were talking about that. But excuse me, the acceptance of, I'm sorry, I'm trying my best. Of these measurable facts that have been tested and proven over time. Okay. So with that, I'll give it back to you, but I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to illustrate there.
Well, that is really the core for the informed, I believe. It's the sticking point for the medically minded, for the health minded, and for the knowledgeable. It's that you cannot escape the risk factors no matter how many times you can jump over a rope, no matter how long you can dance for, just pointing fingers at famous fat acceptance like YouTubers and Instagrammers like Tess Holliday, who is a woman who's like 400-ish pounds. She is an, as the kids would say, absolute unit that refuses to acknowledge that, hey, my health condition may be putting me at risk. Despite all the science, like, no, I am healthy now, so I will be healthy forever, regardless of my weight. And for those of us like you and me who have made a positive change, for those outside who maybe haven't gone through their own weight loss, who have always been fit, who know how to be fit, it's a huge issue for them where, yes, I am putting in work every day to avoid what you are idolizing, essentially.
Right.
You are, it's sticky, but you are idolizing ignorance. You are going out there and saying, hey, destroy your body. As we know, it is the longest, most drawn out form of suicide that there is.
Yes.
I think that's a controversial topic, but it is a long drawn out form of suicide. You will inevitably kill yourself with your decisions. It sucks to say, but you can change it. And if that's not your goal, then do something about it. But it just gets everyone so fired up, especially if you have made the positive change, because it is something we can avoid. It is something we can address. It is something that, we've both done it. It sucks to lose weight. It's like, there's no two ways about it. Cutting down, stopping it like from pigging out and eating everything in sight. I was eating, I believe I've discussed this before, but for our new listeners, back in college, I had a fantastic meal I called Pasta Surprise, where I'd go to a grocery store, get as many boxes of different shaped pasta I could buy, and then put them all together. So every bite's a little surprise. You never know what shape you're going to get. And that was covered in Alfredo sauce. And I'm like, oh, that'll be fine. And then I was 250 pounds, had high blood pressure at age 23, and just was not functioning properly. So addressing these issues, I said, okay, we've said this before, stop eating like an asshole and change some minor lifestyle decisions. It is not huge. I still ate Pasta Surprise. I did not eat as much Pasta Surprise. Or I'd take like a chicken breast and then portion out my Pasta Surprise. I'd go for like, hey, maybe go for a little bit of a walk, move a little bit. Honestly, didn't work out to lose most of my weight. The first 30 pounds came off without doing anything in the gym. I had a back injury. I had a shoulder injury. I still found a way to lose 30 pounds. Just don't eat like an idiot. Don't drink like an idiot. And you can make these positive changes. Like, yeah, it's hard, but you can do it, which is why we have such a difficult time with fat acceptance.
Yes. And it's a great point to bring up kind of these preconceived beliefs. And it's because we've been on both sides of it. I mean, I remember, when I'm in the thick of my powerlifting career, waking up at night and gasping for air because of sleep apnea.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what it was at the time. I thought it was a nightmare or something. I didn't know what was happening. I remember, going to the doctor for a physical for a new job, and then telling me that they'd never seen blood pressure like that on somebody that wasn't having a heart attack at the time. And now, just got another physical last week, and it's completely normal. So, I mean, I agree with you. Like, that's where our frustration comes in. And maybe it goes back to, again, I don't want to make this so philosophical that we're ignoring facts or all this research that you've done. But in my mind, when you and I look at this topic and the idea of weight loss, we both know neither one of us are anything special.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have I do think I can work a little bit harder than the average person. So maybe I have that going for me. But as far as, intellect and being able to decipher what's on the internet, when I started out on this, I had no idea what I was looking for. I printed a diet off that was on the internet, and I remember I was eating white rice and crackers. I had no idea. And now, we've talked about it to where we both, gained some weight, me more so than you. And just because of the continuing education and constantly reading and learning a little bit more, I mean, I'm losing 2 to 4 pounds every week, and I'm having a beer almost every night. You know what I mean? So
right.
I only say that to illustrate the fact that, like you said, it's not that hard. So then when I look at somebody like this Tess lady, what did you say her name was? I pulled her up on Instagram. Tess Holiday?
Tess Holiday.
Okay, so when I look at her and I look at the whole F your beauty standards and stuff, like, oh, okay, I can get on board with that. Like, we shouldn't make anybody, because of our standards of beauty, make people, and especially kids, feel bad about themselves. But like that whole attitude thing, or I'm coming off as like I'm some hard ass because fuck what you think. No, don't fuck what I think, because I have science to back it up. I look at something like that and I think, and this might be wrong, but I think, oh, you just found out, you got started and you found out, hey man, this kind of sucks. Like, this isn't great. Like, I can't go to, out to the club like I used to and do all these things. Things have to change. Rather than owning that and having that ultimate responsibility and accountability that we talk about, because we're huge fans of Jocko here, we just say, no, it's not because it's hard, it's because your thinking is wrong. So maybe I'm regressing here a little bit, and I'm going back to what I was thinking prior to coming down here last week.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's okay, because it's just my opinion. But I think that's where my frustration with this comes from. And it's, just to hit the high points here, it's like you said, we've been on both sides, and now I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not fat, but I'm not super healthy. I'm not at a healthy weight. My BMI is too high.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also not going to, argue with people that it's not my fault that my joints hurt, that my back hurts, that my feet hurt and my knees hurt, that I can't wrestle with these kids at practice, and that you should just accept me because standards are different now. Like, I'm spiraling out here, but I feel like it's all going back to that ultimate responsibility and ownership. And we're giving a pass to people so they don't have to own their own shit or hold themselves accountable, because it's my fault that I don't accept you. And, to go back to my point earlier with Alan, how many people fell down today and didn't have a freaking heart attack? Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, why, if we all just step up, and I'm getting ahead here, so I'm going to stop, because I'm just going to keep going. So I'm going to give it back to you, and you can, deconstruct all that and make me look silly, that'd be fine, because I know I'm going off here. So go ahead.
No, it brings us to another good article that I pulled. This is from, let's see, MedPages Today, kevinmd.com. And this is from Jenny Hartstock, who is a medical doctor. It's dated October 1st, 2018, so it's still relatively new. And it says, don't sign off on fat acceptance. Don't normalize obesity. And this is going to be a long read, so chime in if you need to. Okay. She says, I cannot get behind fat acceptance, or better stated in medical lingo as, quote, normalizing obesity. As a physician and someone who has been obese or morbidly obese my adult life, I know firsthand what it's like to hate my body and feel ashamed of it. I still do at this very moment as I type this, and that's something I have to work on. Funny thing is, I am much more understanding of my obese patients than myself, and I think my own struggles make me more empathetic. There is a place in which you can encourage people to lose weight without being cruel and judgmental, which I think we're both on board with. She sums up in those first couple paragraphs essentially what we've been talking about. You know, we can support people who are trying to lose weight without judging them because, we kind of get it. We've been there. It's
absolutely
a tough hill to climb off of. I would never tell myself or any other patient to accept that their body is destined to be obese and to just make the best of it, just as I would never tell a drug or alcohol abuser to give up on sobriety. Obesity in this country, at its core, is caused by an addiction to foods, to processed sugary foods, and to lifestyles that are less and less active and more sedentary. There's a reason we are now using naltrexone, to treat obesity, just as we treat our heroin addicts. It curbs the cravings. So, I'm not familiar with, heroin addiction, so I don't know that. But we are still learning more and more about why some people are more susceptible to obesity, and I hope in years to come, research will continue to shine light on the subject. In the meantime, the vast majority of us obese people need to find our version of the winning formula that works. Fewer calories in, more calories out. So there you go.
Yes.
I think the bigger problem is go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. This is going to kind of take us down a rabbit hole, sir. Are you sure you want me to? This is going to be a lot of speculation. Do you want to wrap your point up first?
Yeah, write it down. We got 4 more paragraphs to go.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think the bigger problem is the bias against obese patients. As I've said before, that's a real thing and a huge problem, as we discussed last episode. It makes me sad to see how obese people are treated in this country. We are treated the same way that we treat drug abusers, alcoholics, smokers, and the mentally ill. No one chooses these problems. But I hate myself for being obese, so I can understand why others would hate me for it too. As everyone has seen in the last 2 years, with healthy, calorie-counting diets and daily exercise, an obese person can transform to one of nearly normal and healthy weight. But I harbor a dark passenger inside me that triggers me to binge eat to the point of sickness. Do I consider it to be a personal failing and a sign of weakness? Yes, I do. As a bias I bring against myself. Are there genetic factors that predispose me to these behaviors? I'm sure there are. In the end, I feel like it's up to me and my patients to overcome what genetic factors we may have. And the good news is that if diet and exercise alone don't help enough, there are medications and surgery that can. I want myself and my patients to feel healthy, strong, and capable. Being fat doesn't make me a worse person, but it does make me less capable of living a long, full, healthy, and active life. So I won't sign off on fat acceptance. I won't normalize obesity, and I will keep doing everything in my power to help myself and every one of my patients live our best, healthiest lives. And that is from Dr. Jenny Hartstock on kevinmd.com.
I'm writing that name down because I feel like we need to reach out to her.
Yeah, so
this is very well written and great points. And it seems like she's somebody who's exactly like us, just much more smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she mentioned she's been obese and not comfortable, and that's why but there again, just like us, because I'm sure, and we haven't discussed this, but I'm sure you're much harder on yourself than you are on any of your clients or anything like that, as am I, which is what she referenced in the article. Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. So
I was going to say, that point you were going to bring up there.
Is there anything else you want to get into about that article before we do? Because mine's just kind of speculation.
Sure. I had brought that up I brought that in the research. Because I think she does voice the opinions of the health and fitness and medical community just as well as anyone else can put it. It is something that we should support. We should help people away from. We should understand it, but we don't need to support the movement. And we should actively maybe fight against people with information than we are doing now. Like, hey, let's actually get out ahead of it. Let's teach people, or let's reinforce those findings that people choose to ignore. It's scientifically bad. It is genuinely not good. We know this. The data supports it. She touched on the genetics. It is something we have to overcome, but it is something that you can overcome. It's it's all out there. It's kind of what we've been talking about these past 2 episodes, is that, again, just to sum it up in my dumb terms, like, it sucks to lose weight, but you got to do it. Like, it's so much easier to be obese to a certain point until you start killing yourself with your obesity. Then you got to flip the switch. And that's what the good Dr. Jenny Hartsock decided to teach us.
Yes. Yeah, it's uncomfortable on both ends. Now, there is a little sweet spot and for me, it was right around, depending on the accuracy of the body fat analysis, it was right around 14% body fat. It was relatively comfortable. I was pretty comfortable with my shirt off. Things weren't jiggling around or bouncing, and I felt really, really good. It was very active, and I wasn't starving. So there is that sweet spot that we can hit.
Yeah, and that's absolutely in the healthy range. I think the healthy range for men is what, like 8 to 18-ish, kind of.
Yeah. 18's a little too chubby for me, though.
Well, right, but as far as what we would consider medically healthy, that's generally where it is.
Yeah, agreed. So the point I was thinking about, and I don't want to come off insensitive because I'm not trying to be here.
You're like 50 episodes too late.
Do you think that, and again, this is complete speculation here, but just listening to that article and then thinking about other things and looking at this girl's Instagram, and I know that's not those aren't great sources.
Mm-hmm.
But the point that she makes is, or one of the points that she made in that article was basically, don't be a jerk to people that are trying to lose weight, right? And you noted, you and I both wholeheartedly agree with that.
Right.
Like, and one of my biggest frustrations is like the first of the year when people get mad because there's new people coming into the gym. Like, that is so stupid, because then the rest of the year you're the ones on your Instagram complaining about people being lazy or whatever, and then they go and they do exactly what you want them to do, and you're an asshole about it.
Exactly.
You're the problem. So I wonder in my mind, like, how much of this is related to that? How much of the whole fat acceptance thing is related to the whole idea of people being assholes, and then you get so frustrated and so fed up with it, you're like, no, now I'm going to kind of flip the script on you. And you can see it kind of top down in politics today and everything like that. It's this different cultures and different subgroups that have been, I don't want to say picked on, because that sounds like a pejorative there, but like just discriminated against and persecuted and made fun of or whatever. And now finally we're connected enough that we can, where it might have just been, in my hometown, I'm the only one that is, 330 pounds. But now I can find a whole group of people online that are just like me, And you know what? We're pissed off and we're tired of this. And now it's on you guys. So I don't know if this is making any sense, but it almost, in my mind, while I'm listening to that, it comes back to this big circle to where it's been caused just by people being assholes and not saying, hey, good for you. You're in here. You're trying. What can I do to help you? Instead, we're making fun and we're picking on people and things like that to the point where they get frustrated. And now it's like, no, we're going to flip it back on you. Fuck you. Like, fuck your beauty standards. Mm-hmm. This is what we are now. We don't care. Fuck your science. All that. Keep that out of here. You know what I mean? Like, it almost like temper tantrums on both sides of any argument that we can think of today. And maybe if just one person would stop being an asshole and say, hey, I get it. Just like what Ben did when we started this out. I get it. Like, this sucks. This is not great when it's Taco Tuesday and your friends are going out and you're going to, eat a salad or whatever. Right. Like, I know that's not fun. And it goes back, also that whole hot brain, cold brain, things like that. And there's little intricacies that we can get into at a later date. But it just seems like if one person would say, hey, insert name here, I understand, like, this is not fun, but what can I do to help you? How can I keep you on track or hold you accountable? Because I've been there. Like, I know. And that was kind of, the whole birthing of this podcast was, I get it, man. It's not fun. And there's things that happen along the way, like where you lose 50 pounds and you think you ought to look great and you look worse than when you started in your mind. Like, there's things that happen along the way that suck, but they don't tell you about that because you see the before and then the after. So maybe if there was just one person or two people that can start these conversations and things like that, and people on both sides would just stop yelling for the sake of winning an argument and find the truth, which I think you've done a pretty good job of digging up here, then everybody could be a little bit healthier, quote unquote. We could be at a little bit healthier size and a little bit more comfortable with ourselves. I don't know if it makes sense at all, but that's kind of what like these groups were born out of, people being assholes, and then these groups want to say, fuck off, and that's where we're at now. Any of that makes sense?
Yeah,
or too much cough?
No, I think the issue that we have with fat acceptance and most things in the world are lacks of understanding and lacks of communication. These opinions aren't being voiced well. It becomes aggressive almost immediately because that's the quickest way to argue is through aggression. I think it's kind of like a default mode for humans. It's fight or flight. Like, all right, let's fight. We're doing it. So with the fat acceptance movement and with the contrarian view, I think, like, all in all, it's just a wholehearted disappointment in the system that fuels this. Yeah. For people on our side, we are disappointed that people fell through the cracks, that people aren't asking for help when we are so willing to give them help, that other people in our space maybe are pointing fingers and that they don't understand it because they didn't ever have this communicated to them. On the fat acceptance side, it's very difficult to understand the fit person's view that has always been fit, that has never had to struggle with their weight, and that seemingly can keep their shape, keep their size, regardless of what they eat, regardless of what they do. And there's not a whole lot of constructive communication from those two sides trying to find the middle ground. Like you said, saying, I will help you, but you need to help yourself. And ultimately, it is way simpler to get into these tribalistic approaches, especially with the internet. I know it's a huge thing now, and it's going to sound funny, but like the furry community, if you know anything about that, it's people that have been shamed for what they want to do. uh, depending on your beliefs, rightfully so or not. But they reach out through the internet. They have a community where they can express their beliefs and feel support for everything that they do. The fat acceptance movement is the same way. There is always a safe spot online where you can reach out to other people that have similar views, and you can be insulated within your tribe within these similar viewpoints. And
Right.
there isn't enough communication between these two camps. There is almost open hostility online. There is constant finger pointing, constant name calling, and it's not something that really the fitness community has handled well. I think, reflecting on what we have done, it's not something that, maybe not you and me, or maybe you and me. It's not something we have handled well as an industry. And I don't think it's something that the fat acceptance movement has handled well as a movement.
Agreed. And you know what? We can probably do better. I know I can. You do pretty well on things. Unfortunately, I think when you say the word fit pro or fit expert or whatever the term is now, the thought that comes to mind is the half naked woman on Instagram showing her butt trying to get likes with strategically placed protein powders. It's not the people that are having civil debates and actually trying to find the truth aren't the ones that are getting the platform, because sex, drugs, and rock and roll sell, right?
Yep.
Not your PhDs and whatever else you might have behind your name. And that's unfortunate. But ultimately, I mean, we're responsible for that because that's what we, the consumer, buy. So, again, it goes back to this whole big circle where it's, we get what we ask for. But it is, I think it does fall on the shoulders of, guys like you and myself, and there's other people out there that I think are doing a pretty good job talking about the truth and trying to find the science in the peer-reviewed articles and things like that. But yeah, man, I think we can all do better. So we're coming up on an hour here. Where do we stand on this? Have we determined that?
I think it's a very complicated subject, as we have displayed by I don't want to say thinking about this more than we've thought about any other topic, because it's something we actually thought about, which is rare. But we actually put thought into this, which it shows how deep it goes and how many things are tangled up together. But it's something that I just, at my base, I can't support the fat acceptance movement as it stands today. I will support the NAAFA's mission for increased awareness in the medical, educational, and employment fields. I do think that the statistics show that obese people are discriminated against. It is a difficult thing for them to overcome, but you also could face that back on yourself and say, what can I do to make this better for me?
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult because it takes effort, and that's it. For things like, if I want to go work at NASA and be a NASA aeronautical engineer, I have to go to school. That costs time, that costs money, it costs social relationships. I'd have to go find a school, put off 4 years of my life, incur great debt. But to lose weight, don't cost much. Takes time, but
probably costs less for spending.
Yeah, exactly. It costs time, but like Josh Hobine said, time's going to pass anyway.
Right.
It might cause some social relation friction, but I don't think it's going to be outright like destroying your relationships, unless you have one of those weird like feeder relationships where your whole relationship is built off of feeding and caring. That's like a My 600 Pound Life thing, where it's the exceeding exception. And it's something that you just have to put your mind to for like 2 months. You can see a vast change.
Yeah.
You'll see how easy it is after 2 months. First week's going to suck. Second week, going to suck. Third week, only going to suck a little bit. Fourth week, going to suck a little bit less. By like 6 and 7, doing all right. By 8, it's just kind of a way of life. Like, all right, you kind of got it down by then. But it's the big frustration because we know how to fix it. You and me both are big on like personal freedoms. Do what you want to do as long as you're not hurting anyone, which they aren't, but they're hurting themselves. So it's frustrating to see, but you can't change the world for yourself, and you can change yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't get on board with the the whole like third wave fat acceptance. Like, I think we addressed where it's this modern fat acceptance, where it's a militant fat acceptance, and you're just like holding up your chubby little middle finger to everyone, saying like, oh, screw you, I'm gonna be fat and you have to love me for it. It's like, no, because you're harming yourself. It's something that you should get help with, and I want to help. So I can't support it, but I will try to support what I believe in. I think everyone has the right to get equal medical coverage. Everyone should have access to the same education or the ability to be educated. Everyone should have equal opportunities in the workplace. It's something I agree with, but I can't get on board with the like feed me everything and you have to love it approach to fat acceptance.
I'm completely on board with equal opportunities, not equal outcomes, because I think every child should be exposed to the best possible education that they can get, best quality food, you name it. These people should have the same opportunity as I do going into a job, but outcomes aren't always going to be the same. And I mean, I think that's what equality is. I'm probably not saying that right, but I'm really tired and I don't feel well. No, but this was a great conversation, and I'm with you to the point that I will never discriminate somebody their size, be it relationship wise, friendship, work colleague, just somebody I'm going to hang out with. Some of my favorite kids on the wrestling team are from 220 to heavyweight. I just
right.
Those are my misfits, man. I love them, but I can't accept the fact that you can just snub so much research and so much data and say that you're completely fine, because it's not the case.
Right. Yeah, it's like almost just being actively ignorant is frustrating. And having all that in your face saying, no, not me. Doesn't apply.
Right.
You're a person just like everyone else. There are 7 billion of us running around, and guess what? We all function pretty much the same. So,
right.
Yeah.
Hey, hang on just a second. I got to reset the board real quick. Okay. Let me stop that there. Sorry, I was getting some weird feedback just started on my end.
Yeah, I heard that a little bit.
But yeah, I mean, my goal is never to hurt anybody's feelings. And unfortunately, for so long in my life, I think that was kind of my mission, was just to be right. And it was like Abraham Lincoln, scorched earth. Like, I'm just going to annihilate you and your beliefs to such a point that you never want to challenge me again. And I don't know, I'm getting older, kids, whatever it might be. That's not the case now. Like, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want somebody to go home and feel sad. And usually when I act like that, I end up feeling worse anyways. Later on, I'm like, why'd I have to be an asshole? Like, it's and I'm not going to sit here and probably made some off-color comments about, some of these Instagram accounts and stuff like that. And I shouldn't do that. Like, there's not really an excuse for that. And I would never want somebody to feel bad for the way they look, how much they weigh, or anything like that. But also, you cannot expect me to accept that when we have this data here. And there's so many of us. There's 2 guys right here that's more than willing to help in any way that we can, probably for free, which we shouldn't put out there. But, if you're looking for some advice or whatever, just because that's what we're passionate about. And again, like I've just really bought into this extreme ownership and accountability, and ultimately we are responsible for where we find ourselves at. And just because you're not happy with that doesn't mean that, like Ben said, you can just lift your middle finger and say, nope, this is the new norm. Get on board with it, or you're wrong. So it's kind of my stance on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, just to put the end piece in here, I'm a little bit more understanding than I was 2 weeks ago, if that makes sense.
Yep, and that's what this is all about. It's growth in understanding. It's a growth in your education about the subject, and it's a growing process for both of us.
Absolutely. And I think we'll come back. I really want to try to reach out to Dr. Hartstock, because I think that was just a wonderfully written article, and I'd be really interested not only to get a doctor's perspective on it, but a female perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this is something we'll come back to in the future. But hey, excellent job on the research, man. I think you did a great job over the past couple weeks spelling all this out. I hope I didn't ruin it. So
thank you very much.
Anything else you want to get into before we get out of here?
To anyone that's listening that, again, is struggling with these issues, we believe in you. We know you can change. We support you 100%. Let us know if we can help.
Absolutely. Yep. And you can find us on social media. It's at Ben Simonak, facebook.com/buildingambition, buildingambition@gmail.com, or at buildingambition on Instagram. Hit us up. More than happy to help you out. So with that being said, guys, make sure you subscribe on iTunes, follow us on social media. Everybody have a great week. You're going to be out of the office next weekend, aren't you?
Or is that the weekend after.
Okay. So the weekend after, you're taking a trip or you're doing something.
Landon
but
Fields.
It requires Landon Fields. Okay. So it requires some travel, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So spring is rapidly approaching, my man. We've already talked about that. Why don't we do top 6 reading list or top 5, however you want to hash it out? Let's do that next week. So you can have some of my picks. I can have some of your picks while you're gone for the week next week. And I think everybody really likes those. We always get a lot of hits on those. So are you okay with that?
Sounds like a plan.
And if any listeners have any recommendations, maybe we'll do a top 5 reading recommendation list from our listeners as well as Ben and myself's list. So I'll put a poll up, or you can put something up on yours, and we'll get some input from people. And I always enjoy doing these. I like finding new material to dig into. So we'll do that next Sunday. As always, have a great week. Follow us online. Hit us up with those reading recommendations, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.